So, as I mentioned earlier, and as Carmina referred to, the monthly theme is how to pray effectively using affirmative prayer spiritual treatment. And the specific topic, the suggested specific topic, although we're not bound to this, is make each treatment complete. So I printed out, I'll distribute these later, but we talk about the 5 steps of treatment. That's generally accepted. Some people say there's 3. Some people say there's 1. Just go, God is all there is, and that's fine, whatever works. But most people find the 5 steps to be very helpful and useful. And so I made copies of the 5 steps of treatment, which I'll make available after the service. Because it occurred to me some people, especially if they haven't taken classes yet or don't have the Science of Mind textbook in their library, may wonder exactly what that means. So we'll let that be covered by the handouts. I wanted specifically to talk a bit this morning about things that I think are sometimes misunderstood or overlooked in giving treatment. I think specifically the consciousness of the practitioner, the role of the consciousness of the practitioner, and also the role of love in giving treatments. Because it's easy to assume that this is an impersonal teaching. Ernest Holmes says the law is impersonal, is no respecter of persons. Well, what that means is, it means that the law is a power that works according to what we put into it. Like the laws of gravity. No matter what we may think of the gravity, it's always turned on, right? Every room you walk into, yep, gravity's switched on, yep. So we can count on that. We have to be able to work effectively with it, though. And so, yes, the law is the law, and it works according to what we put into it. And that's where the passion and the love come into play. Because some people might say that as long as you get all of the points of treatment and you say the right words, that your treatment will be effective. Yeah. How many people agree with that? I know I kind of set it up, so it's exactly. I mean, you could say the most beautiful words. You could create a treatment that would be like the equivalent of a Ferrari automobile. Every single part of it is just a work of art, a beautiful thing. And it's got so much potential power. But what if you forget to put gas in the tank? What's going to happen with that car? It's a sculpture, right? Nothing's going to happen. It's the same way with the law. Ernest Holmes put it this way: always we see that spiritual mind practice is a combination of love and law. Love as impulsion, law as propulsion. So the law is waiting for us to tell it, what do you want me to do? But when you say the words, they have to be said with the deep sense of love and conviction. And I would argue even, and actually Ernest Holmes says this, we in some sense love our clients, or they used to call them patients in those days, into wholeness. And we're not talking about erotic love or that, we're talking about agape, the kind of love that Jesus felt for his disciples, the kind of love that God feels for all of us. That's the kind of love we're talking about. And when we give a treatment with that sense, that is what tells the law powerfully what to do. And if we don't have that feeling, the treatment's not going to do very much. So that's a very important point. A couple of things I wanted to talk about also. We must also, when we're working with someone, and I know at times we can decide maybe that someone is stuck. We come to that conclusion. Maybe they have the same treatment every time. Or it's a year later and they're still asking for the same treatment. So it could be easy to get into judgment. However, do you think that love and judgment can coexist in the context of spiritual mind treatments? Probably not. Probably not. Because when we judge, we set ourselves up as though we have some access to some insider power or knowledge that this person doesn't have. Nothing could be further from the truth. We all have exactly the same amount of access to that. We may need to lead people into their recognition of it, but it's always there. One of my earliest teachers, his name was Dr. Oscar Pitcock, he said if you walk by a person sleeping in a doorway and think for 1 second that you have a higher consciousness, or that you're a more spiritual being, I should say, than that person is, then back to the end of the line and start with the basic classes again. We all have exactly the same amount of spirit. So the key is, are we aware of it, and are we using it effectively? I have a few things here from, there's this little tiny book. It's called How to Use the Science of Mind. I don't even have it here with me today. I printed out some of it from, I do have it in Kindle. But it's, Ernest wrote this a little later in life, and it's almost like, I would call it the practitioner's handbook, because it explains in a little more detail some of these finer points I'm referring to. One of the things Ernest Holmes says, when we're giving treatment, any type of judgment creates separation. So, Ernest says, only in a spirit of love, understanding, and unity can there be wholeness. The practitioner identifies both himself and his patient, that's how they talked in those days, with pure spirit. Love is the great healing power, a love which sees through human error to the infinite, which knows nothing outside of itself. So we always stay in that consciousness. And as far as how long should it take, until we see the demonstration. We can't know that. We can't force it. You talked about childbirth being a natural process. You know, just because someone wants to give birth on a certain date doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen, right? It's almost never the actual date they say it's going to be. Also, there's no argument in giving treatments. So if a practitioner is beginning to argue with the person who's come to them for treatment, as though here's what you have to understand, and getting into a back and forth, that's not going to work out too well either. Too much time is lost in arguing whether or not one's philosophy is the correct one. That's Ernest Holmes. Or saying that my religion is the true one, or the more effective one. Let us leave these arguments behind and find the thread of truth running through all systems. Let us build on the affirmative. Okay, and that really is what was the motivating factor, I think, in Ernest's life, is finding the thread. His parents did not raise him to one particular faith. They actually encouraged him to explore, and he certainly did. And looked into all religions and found at the beginning, the people, the saints and sages who founded and promoted different ideas throughout time, were all saying pretty much the same thing. And that's the truth that cuts through all of the rest of it. So there's nothing wrong with religion. If a particular practice brings you closer to the truth and into your center, from which you can operate powerfully, and your intention is to be helpful and kind and loving, then what difference does it make what we call it? So, sum it up, that part of it. If you come across someone who is, this is Ernest's words, opinionated, argumentative, and resistant, what should you do? What should you treat for in a situation like that? We already know we're not going to argue with the person. But the person has an issue. They've come to you for some reason, right? So we already know they're touched by spirit in some way, or they wouldn't be in front of us. It may be a baby step, but this is a very important step. And if we meet them with arguments or persuasion, it's probably not going to land anywhere yet. And we also want to treat for whatever the condition is that they're seeking treatment for. But what else? What else could we do in a situation like that? Any ideas?
Send love.
Absolutely, absolutely. Send love. Yes.
Acknowledge that they got where they are.
Exactly. Yeah, they're there. Somehow they're there. Yes.
See them as being whole and releasing whatever issue it is that's gotten them stuck.
Yes, exactly. So, and that could be a separate treatment in itself. We don't have to say it aloud for them. They might not quite understand what we're doing yet. So we'll treat whatever condition they came to us for, but we will also, in our own consciousness, treat for them to be unblocked from recognizing their own good and their own connection with spirit. Ernest also says, you know, and it's interesting, in this one chapter of how to use the science of mind, it's called Relationship of Practitioner to Patient. So that languaging is maybe a little out of date. I certainly wouldn't call someone who came to me for a treatment a patient nowadays. But nonetheless, that is the relationship in that moment. And love comes up over and over and over again. So for those who say, well, where's the love in this teaching? Where's the passion in this teaching? Well, I'll show them exactly where it is. I don't think it gets talked about enough. So there's the mechanics of it, but that's the law. It's up to us to bring the fuel, which is the passion and the love. Ernest says, this calls for tolerance and love, sympathy and understanding. As a surgeon sets a broken bone with no personal opinion about the patient, seeking only to help him, so the practitioner readjusts thought with the same tolerance and desire to be helpful. So it's not someone's fault necessarily, they have a broken bone, and it's not someone's fault if they've never been exposed to this type of philosophy before. So, but love is what can break through all of that resistance. There's also something that this is something that probably 15 or 20 years ago, earlier on in the process, I would sometimes hear, I don't hear this very much at all nowadays, thank God, someone would say, well, what was in your consciousness to attract that? You know, misapplication of the law of attraction and of the principles of treatment. Ernest says about that type of thing, the cold statement, you are already perfect, and the only thing wrong with you is your false belief. This will never heal. It will arouse antagonism and conflict, which will reflect back and forth subconsciously between the practitioner and the patient. So to say to someone, what was in your consciousness to bring about that, the person probably already feels bad enough. Now we're going to make them feel guilty too. Like, oh, you did that to yourself. You know, if only you'd listened to me, or if only you'd read this book. So no, we don't do that. The antidote for that is each person should be received in sympathy and love, never with a lofty attitude, which looks down from the heights, or pity or condemnation. This will never heal. So that's something else to keep in mind, is, as they say in therapists and psychologists, you take your patients where they are. That's always has to be the beginning point. You meet them. You don't expect them to somehow suddenly have this blinding flash of insight and be at your level of thinking. In fact, they may eventually choose to express it differently. This is another one that I really love. It kind of goes back to the original point. No mere series of statements, however beautiful or spiritual, can do the healing. It must be accompanied by a deep and penetrating sense of love. Ernest Holmes, right there. A sincere approach to spirit in oneself and in others. It calls for patience and kindness, for sympathy and compassion. A sympathy with the person, but never with the wrong that assails them. So these may seem like nuances, but they're actually really the key to what makes treatment work. And when I saw that, see if I can bring this up, it reminded me of Corinthians. I'm sure everyone's heard this, but it bears repeating. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, nor is it proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, not easily angered, and keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in wrong, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Love never fails. Isn't that a beautiful reminder? And that's what we do in treatment as practitioners when we're working with people. So, in conclusion, because I'm sharing the podium today with Elliotte, so she has some things she'd like to say, I'm sure, as well. I could go on, but there's material here for another talk someday, perhaps when all of our ministers are in Alaska or just returning from Alaska. I'm so jealous. And I got pictures, by the way, along the way. And it was amazing. I felt like I was on the cruise with them. And I have been on a similar cruise, so I recognized a lot of those places. So anyway, thank you for letting me be up here and talk with you. And may we all go forth and maintain our consciousness, including when we're treating for ourselves, of love, non-judgment, and absolute sincerity. Thank you.
Just when you thought it was over, part 2. We have 3 reverends here, Reverend Kathy, Reverend Linda, Reverend Christine, and they were not here for this service, so that's why you get a 3 for today. You get Deanna, you get Greg, and you got me. So Greg's a practitioner. I'm not a practitioner that he is, but I am a Tai Chi practitioner. I'm suited up for today's talk. So that subject is just what fascinated me. praying effectively. So that's why, okay, I'm willing to put in my 2 cents worth. How to pray effectively. Now you got to know where I come from, because who's talking? I got to build my credibility. Background, of course, is raised in 3 different kinds of religion. My father was Protestant, my mother is Catholic, my nanny is Buddhist. So on any given Sunday, I either go to Mass, temple, or service. And then right around college, when the Vietnam War was going on, I just threw away all those religions, and I followed Mayor Baba to India. Oh, some of you have gone through that path as well. So what's going to happen, of course, that the message comes from me might come in all kinds of forms, you see? You know, how to pray effectively. Oh, remember, our Father who art in heaven. Thanks, Dad. and Mom, Anus Dei Pecoris Pecat Mundi, Dononomis Pacium. Remember that? Yeah? And my nanny, and then you have Om Namah Shivaya. So, talk about schizophrenia. Deanne, I have a problem. But then I stumble upon this place because there's a big sign that says spiritual innovations happens here. Spiritual innovation, those are weird words to put together, but that is what happens here. We are allowed to be totally creative, right, Becca? You know, you step into here and you say, Cindy, what have you got to offer? Come on, bring it on, because it seems to fit. Now, the warning, of course, is that when you're schizophrenic like me, you never know who's talking at once, you know, which of the 5 religions, and so forth. So I also run 5 or 6 different kinds of Toastmasters Club, but we do say within the club there that you need structure. You still really need structure, but you could be creative within the structure. That's where it's coming, you see. So the 5 treatments that Greg's talking about, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, unification, realization, and so forth, I just thought, ooh, that's not good either. You know, I already have problems with the multiples, but you're going to have these multiples there too. But this is what I sincerely believe in all the my path toward prayer effectively. I just thought that so many of our prayers today were prayers of supplication. You know, I want, I need, and so forth. And you get into that too. Sometimes your treatments are supplication. But then I also found out that the most effective prayers are the ones of gratitude. Prayers of gratitude is something that I said, aha, you know what? There's the difference. The prayer between supplication and the prayers of gratitude is that with one of them, you don't have the supplication. With the other one, the gratitude, you have. And so everything we've learned about the type of prayers we have here is to speak of it in terms of affirmation as if you've already got it. You see. So then I said, if that's the case, those 5 steps that we're doing, you know, with realization and unification and gratitude, that's like a all-in-one structure. That is the structure I need, because when my mind goes all over the place, and I'm in several different churches and several different mindset, if I just follow those 5 steps, I'm pretty much safe that my mind is not going to wander way too crazy. I still could be within the creativity, within those 5 steps. You could go crazy with your unification. You know, I'm one with Allah, Buddha, you know, myself, and so forth. So with that message, I just want to share with all of you that you are in the right place. This is the most creatively, effectively praying place in the whole wide world. And now I'm going to bring you back the person who is organizing this sermon. He's going to have your prayer treatment now. That's how we always start. Isn't that right, Reverend Kathy?
Okay, as opposed to the closing prayer.
Right. No. He starts it, he ends it. I'm just the second banana here.
I don't think you're second banana to anything, Elliotte. Hardly. Hardly that. Oh, my. So shall we go within at this point? And let's give ourselves one of those treatments. I know and affirm and feel at the very deepest level that there is one infinite power in the universe. And as Ernest Holmes taught, and I can use it. And I choose to use it today, to know that I'm ready to live my life to the fullest. I am guided and supported in everything that I do. I am the divine expression of God, peacefully and helpfully shining my light wherever I go. I am ready and able to be the light, the love, and the peace. And because of this, all is well. I am the living expression of the best that life has to offer. I am open and receptive and grateful, and my abundance demonstrates the joy in my heart. My heart and my mind are open to receive the clarity I need to live a divinely inspired life. And so I choose to go out there and shine that light. And as we know together, this is the reality of each and every one of us. And not only that, but we have the opportunity to share this, that others may become also equally empowered with that light. And we say together, and so it is. Thank you.